Hi, it's Sarah with House Copper, and today we are doing something that I'm really nervous about because I've actually never done this before for a build. I actually only know what I know because Bob has told it to me in detail a few times. I know he has attempted it like once years back at a tin and coppersmith convergence, and it's kind of one of those methods that has been lost because it is time consuming, it is difficult to do. And once they invented the pressing and machines and stamping machines in the mid 1800s, and now we spin our metal, there's just no reason or need to do these seams when we have much more efficient ways of building cookware. But this is the cramp seam. And a cramp seam in cookware is by far the strongest seam that you can build because you braze it shut, which essentially creates, almost a copper-like substance. It doesn't wear like tin, so it holds up. It's still going to be a weak point, and so over time, a cramp seam will be where a pot will spring a leak or crack, much more so than the copper itself. But it is an incredibly sturdy seam. So we're actually only going to tackle the beginning part of it today, unless I can get all of it done in this video. I'm trying not to make these insanely long because they're long. But we're going to start out, and I'm just going to do it in the flat, not in a body, because I'm not going to make this any harder than it already is going to be. And we're going to just dive in, and hopefully it works. Also, this method, the cramp seam, you really only want to use thicker copper to do so. This won't really be something that you're going to want to attempt with thinner copper. And there's two reasons that I would say are the main reasons. Number one is you're already going to be doing a lot of pounding and flattening, and if you're working with a really thin copper, it's going to crack right away, and it's kind of already thin to begin with, and it's pointless. And the other reason is because when you are brazing the cramp seam shut with acetylene and your bronze brazing, essentially solder, you'll burn a hole in your copper because the heat will be so high to get the brazing stick to melt, and you'll end up just with a big hole in your copper pot that you built. So this is a method that is specifically for thicker gauge copper. I'm going to use probably, I might use 060. You could, it's something you can do 2.5 to 3 millimeters thick as well if you have the forming tools to build what you're trying to build with that, and cut. That's the biggest part, is cutting. So without further ado, we're going to start with the cutting. All right, so this is a pretty thick piece, so that's what I'm going to use. It's just an old piece of scrap. And the reason you're going to do it, so you're going to use this for thicker stuff, see, I'm so messy, is because you're going to be hammering this thickness by half in order to build your seams. It's going to be some overlap, and yeah, it's pain. I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this for a video. Part of me is like, I should have just never said I was going to do it, but too late, Sarah. All right. So now that I have two halves, I'm going to cut my teeth. Now, this is the part where, again, the thicker you have it. I'm trying to do this on a video is like, it's so hard. But you're going to be cutting teeth out and then matching. There's no good way to kind of do squared off stuff, so I always go in at an angle. And it doesn't have to be perfect. If you ever look at old pans, they aren't, because I mean, A, it's hard, and B, that soldering, your brazing is going to like fill in any cracks that you make. So again, don't freak out about it being exact. But okay, so you get the idea. I'm gonna cut a few more of these out. I don't know why it's being such a pain. The things I do for these videos, because I'm procrastinating from doing some tinning that I don't feel like doing. And making a video is more fun than tinning right now. Anyway, so back and forth, away you go. Trying to dig out your tooth. Wow, I'm really destroying this. But you're going back and forth to, see, this thicker copper, man, it's gonna be the end of me. To get kind of a squared off tooth. Here we go. I mean, it's not perfect, like I said, but that's okay, because it's all going to get we're all gonna kind of get smushed together. So, I mean, I could be a perfectionist, but again, it's gonna all get smushed up. Then, if you want, now that you have your pattern, and obviously, you know, you'd be cutting as many of these teeth, you know, you'd have another cutout here and stuff. But just to get a general idea. And now, I'm going to cut the other side. Of course, this side's easier right here, but it won't be. Because sorry for the silence. I'm like really trying to cut this, and it's so thick. I'm just gonna, you know, slice your fingers a lot with these sharp corners and bleed all over everything. Okay, so here's the seams. So this is what it would look like when you fit them together. Okay, now the next part is the hammering part. And what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be hammering the edges here and the edges here, so that they are half the thickness, roughly half the thickness of what they are currently, and they're gonna kind of flange out. So we're gonna go hammer. So here's, Oh my gosh, here's the original thickness. Can you see it? It's like focusing on my hands. There's the original thickness. And then there's the new hammered thickness. It is thinner. Okay. And it's kind of flanged out. I'm going to do that to literally every corner that I'm going to overlap. Okay. So can you see how they're all hammered? They're thinner. And now when they go together like this, they overlap. Do you see how like that automatically, oh, I should do this one. And this is again why I like when they stop needing to do this. This is inordinate an amount of hammer strokes and finesse that comes with getting these kind of flanges to do what they, overlap what they do. But you know, this now, you know, how that shape is might be a little bit more familiar to you. So the next thing you do, if you look at those seams, the next thing, all right, is you cut any of the excess and kind of like wrinkliness. So to kind of clean up your hammering, and then not the whole thing of what you did, but just enough to clean them up. Oh my gosh, I did that too high, but to clean them up. But if you see like the hammering areas, that part that's still half a thickness is still there. Now, if I recall from Bob, I think sometimes they did, could have, still do, if anyone does this, you can do it a second time. You can do exactly what I just did with hammering and thinning out and cutting a second time. But we're not going to today because now you know how to do that. And if you feel so inclined, you can do a second round of this hammering and flanging and cutting process. So now we're still overlapping. And here's the thing, where these just overlap is now here or there, because the flanges are half a thickness. When I put this together and they just slightly overlap, that area is now the same thickness as your original thickness. So like you reduce it by half on all your flanges and then you make it one again. And then you hammer them together and then you would braise them. So I did get all this in a video. I'll hammer them and we're not gonna braise them, but the next time I go to Bob's and we do braise, I will do a video of the braising technique. I believe we have a repair coming up in a couple of months and there will be braising on that for a repair. Which is just soldering with bronze and higher heat, but it's a little bit more of a pain in the butt. All right, hammering. Obviously, this is not like perfect. Here, it might be easier to do it this way because we are not doing the whole line of it, but the idea again is we're just gonna do it in this middle one. You would kind of smush that together and they would fit, you know, you're fitting right in there. So where there's overlap, so we're just gonna look at this center one, but where there's overlap, there's very little, especially on, oh my gosh, on the back here, like right here, this is like what you're gonna look at, just this area. And this, okay, so I'm gonna try and get as close as I can. So, and everything is hammered. It's a very sloppy, but this right here, it's so hard to show on the video. There we go. But you can see that it's, so I want you to look kind of where my two fingers, kind of that crack in the middle, right there. It looks like it is a, you know, there's a bump, but actually, if you run your hand, oh my gosh. This is so hard to do one-handed and try and show you guys, but it's very tight, and when you run your hand here to there, there's just a very tiny, you know, you can feel the crack, but it's not like a difference like where it's a double thickness. The feeling of a double thickness is gone. And then once you braise everywhere, that goes away as well. It smooths itself out. So maybe this side will show it a little better. And again, I know I'm kind of cheating because we're just doing it on one piece of like this, because I'm not going to do a whole thing for you guys. This is just way too much work. But for right here too, if I were to braise it shut, oh my God, it would look like one thickness. And this would all kind of run together. Okay, so that's the gist of a cramp seam, as I said. And you can see why it is not really done anymore. It is painstaking. There's a ton of hammering. There's a lot of wiggling back and forth. There's, you know, a lot of cutting and measuring. It's just a very putsy seam. And when you can do a cramp seam, or you can do a, you know, a lap seam any other time, do that. The one thing is, if you did a cramp seam and you braised it, and like I said, I will do a braising video separately on just braising in general. But if you did that, you would have a totally waterproof pot without any solder, any tin solder, any tin lining. This cramp seam and the you know, the braising that you do makes a completely waterproof vessel. So that is, you know, why it was done as much as it was before they had the stamping and pressing. So that's it. I am really interested to hear what everybody has to say, or if people have other methods or ways that they've done this, or have seen it done, or ideas. I might even try and coerce Bob to do like a sample for him. But that's it. So how to do a cramp seam, we did it. Thank you so much for watching. Find my book, Copper, Iron, and Clay, wherever books are sold. Find me on Facebook and Instagram with House Copper. Please subscribe. Let everybody know about this amazing place you learn about coppersmithing, because copper is the best. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.